Hello, good evening. Hello, am I audible?
Good evening, madam.
Good evening. Can you please help me to find out the last slide I have done last week? Actually, I can't remember. Up to which slide we have done last time? Can you please help me? Hello. කාට හරි කියන්න පුළුවන්ද මම කොයි ස්ලයිඩ් එක වෙනකන්ද කරේ කියලා ගිය සැරේ? මතක නැහැ? Tax table finished. Okay. Tax table finished means this one. I think this one. Yes, this is the tax table. So we have studied for employment income. Employment income is the most dominant source we have. So we have four income sources. First one is employment, then business, then investment. Final one is the other income source. So employment income is the most important one because when we are identifying our income, and when we are categorizing our income, first of all, we have to consider whether that income should be categorized under employment income or not. We have done all these things. That means what are the, from the beginning, this is just a reminder. We started from the employment income. Then the definition for the employment, then the manager and the employer definitions I have explained. In addition to that, the difference between employment income and business income, I explained it. Then the characteristics of the employment income. After that, items that we have to include. So it has been given under subsection 2 of section 5. Section 5 is for employment income. So it has three subsections, subsection 1, 2, and 3. Subsection 1 explains the employment income. Then subsection 2 explains the items that we have to include when we are calculating employment, accessible income from employment. Then after that, I explained about the items that we have to exclude when we are calculating the accessible income from employment. So we identified, we discussed about exempt amounts and all other items that we have to exclude. In addition to that, I explained about some exemptions. So these are the exemptions. That exemptions are provided under third schedule. So after that, I explained that deductions are not entitled for the employment income. Then the accounting basis, that is cash basis. So cash basis means when we are receiving some income, if it is in respect of the employment, then we have to consider at the time of receipt of that income for the identification of the employment. Then the source rule, then advance personal income tax. So advance personal income tax is a kind of withholding Withholding means when we are receiving income from our employer, at that time, employer should deduct taxes from our employment income. Employment income means either it can be salary, bonus, like that, allowances. So all when we are receiving that from that income from our employer, employer has an obligation to deduct taxes on behalf of us. So that is a kind of withholding tax. So we call it advanced personal income tax. So it was started from January 1st, 2023. After that, because earlier also we had that advanced personal income tax very beginning when we are introducing new Inland Revenue Act. That means number 24 of 2017 Act. In that Act, it says withholding tax on employment under Section 83. After that, the name changed to advanced personal income tax. So in between the introduction of advanced personal income tax, at that time it was not an obligation to deduct employment withholding tax from our employment income, because at that time it was not a mandatory deduction. So it was deducted uh, if that employee has given their consent for the deduction. Only at that time it was happen like that. But after January 1st, 2023, now it is an obligation of the employer. So employer definitely should deduct advanced personal income tax when they are making payment to their employees. So the primary employment I explained, primary employment means there may be, for a person, there may be several employment income, several employment, but we have to select one employment as our primary employment, and all others can be secondary employments. So if we have one employment, we can call it primary employment. If we have more than one employment, then we should select one employment as our primary employment. And we have to provide an employer with a declaration. So in that declaration, we have to mention that this is our primary employment. So there's a reason for saying that. So I will explain it later. Then if that is a secondary employment, we should definitely say to our employer that is our secondary employment. That means if we may receive a primary employment income or secondary employment income, but to our employer, we have to tell them that this is our primary and this is our secondary. So these are the personal income tax tables. So advanced personal income tax tables means we have our in the practical situation, for an employer, there are a lot of employees. So when they are deducting taxes from their employment income, when they are making payments to employee, at that time they have to deduct taxes on behalf of that employee. So we call it advanced personal income tax. So it is kind of withholding tax. So I think you can understand advanced personal income tax or withholding taxes are not separate taxes. Those are a kind of advance payment for the income tax. So because of that, we are considering that kind of income as type payment methods of payment. So we have one of the method of payment is installment payment. Another one is withholding tax. As a part of the withholding tax, we can collect our taxes. So withholding tax is not a separate tax. It is a method of payments. So it is not a separate tax. හැමතැනම කියනවනේ withholding tax අඩු කරනවා, pay tax එකතු කරනවා කියලා taxes ගොඩාක් කියලා, but it is not a separate tax. It is a method of payment of income tax. So that method is applicable to all taxpayers, but some withholding taxes should be collected from the employment income. We called it advanced personal income tax. So when an employer deducting advanced personal income tax, he cannot calculate each employee's tax liability one by one. It is very difficult. So I think you can understand there may be lot of employees, sometimes thousands, sometimes more than 1,000 employees are there. So when they are when they are deducting tax from their employment income, it is not an easy thing. It is not an easy thing. So because of that, we are given a tax table. We have prepared tax tables considering several situations. Based on that tax table, very easily employer can deduct taxes when they are paying employment income to their employees. So these are the tables we can apply. So you can find these tables through our website. You can go to the website. In the website, you can see publications. In the publications drop down, there is a EPIT table. So pay tax tables means that earlier we used that term payee, pay as you earn. But after that, we changed the name, that is EPIT, Advanced Personal Income Tax Tables. So advanced personal income tax tables are not used by an employee, but the employer. That means when we are calculating our own tax liability, it is not necessary to apply these tables because we can calculate our own tax liability by our own because it is not a difficult thing. But for an employer, for an accountant, when that accountant making the advance, making employment income to employees, at that time they have to deduct it. So it is not an easy task. That is why we have prepared these EPIT tables. We have already prepared these EPIT tables and it is available in the website. Any employer can use this. Using these tables, he can deduct tax liability. So because of that, they can prepare some apps, software for the calculation of advanced personal income tax. So these are the tables available in that table, EPIT table. So there are 8 tables, each table used for each type of income. That means for the regular profits, we have one table. For lump sum payment, we have another table. For terminal benefits, for non-resident, non-citizen employees, for cumulative profits from primary employment, tax on tax rates, uh, employees who has not furnished a primary employment declaration. That means for the secondary employment, we can use table 7. For table 8 is a newly introduced one, so we use it for the calculation of foreign employment. So these are the tables available in the website. Using these tables, considering the situation, they should select which table should be applied for each employment income. Because now you know there are a lot of several types of employment income. Some are salaries, some are overtime, some are allowances, some payments are bonus, salary areas, like that. There are several situations. So based on the situation, we can identify, we should determine to which table should be applied for that each income type. So these are the obligations of employer and employee. That means employer should pay that deducted amount. That means when employer making the payment to employee, that means when that accountant paying salaries to their employee, at that time they have to deduct taxes from that amount on behalf of that employee. Employer should deduct. that deducted amount should be paid to the department not later than 15th day of the following month. For an example, for the payment, for the if an accountant deducted APIT in the month of April, before 15th of May, that deducted amount should be paid to the department. And after that, annual statement with schedule should be prepared by that employer, and before April 30th, that annual statement with that schedule should be submitted to the department. In this schedule, it has mentioned the TIN numbers of that employee or national identity card numbers of that employee. Then we can easily give credits to that employee when that employee calculating his own tax liability. That means he may have some business income, interest income, like that. Not only the employment income, at that time there may be several other income sources. So using all that income sources, that employee should calculate his tax liability. And after that, using these schedules, credit can be given automatically to that person, that employee. So because of that, after deducting APIT by the employer, he should mention the details of that employee in the schedule. So we can very easily, we can trace that employee's details, and we can easily give credit to that employee using the details of these schedules. So after deducting APIT by the accountant, he should give T10 form. It should be given before April 30th, or if an employment ceases, at that time he can request it. Otherwise, before 30th of April in every year, the T10 certificate should be handed over to that employee. In that document, it says what are the amounts considered for the deduction of income tax, in deduction of APIT, and what are the income exempted from tax, and what are the non-cash benefits, what are the cash benefits, like that. Everything is included in this T10 form. Using this T10 form, employee can calculate their own tax liability when, if he should submit a return, income tax return, at that time, he can use this T10 form to calculate his assessable income from employment, because it includes every income received from his employer. That means not only the cash benefit, but non-cash benefits also should be included in this T10 form, because that non-cash benefits also liable for taxes. So these schedules should be prepared separately. In addition to that, he should keep all these documents for a period of 5 years with him. That means with the employer. So you can see the website of the Inland Revenue Department. In the Inland Revenue Department website, you can see publications. Under this publication, you can collect, you can see APIT tables. In the downloads part, download part, you can see this kind of forms. If you click the download button, then you can see forms and returns in the document. Then you can see some details. So if you click the advanced personal income tax plus mark, then you can see primary employment declaration, secondary employment declaration, and certificate of income tax deduction. So you can see these kind of things in the website. So if you are an employee, primary employment, if you have a primary employment, but definitely you may have a primary employment. So you can download this document from here. If you have more than one employment, then you can download the secondary employment declarations from the website. In addition to that, T10 form also you can download it. the employer can download it from this website, and for each employee, that employer should give that document. Okay, I have explained these things. Then we can move to the non-cash benefits. Non-cash benefits means not only the cash benefits, non-cash benefits also a part of the employment income. So for this purpose, we have already issued a circular SCC 2023-E2 on 23rd April 6. So this is the circular we can use for the period of year of assessments to in 2025-2026, because now we are in 25-26 year of assessment. So this is the circular you can use. So in this circular, it says how to calculate the non-cash benefits. So we can move from this slide, or we can go to the circular itself for the review. So this is for the okay, I like to go to the circular. We can go to the circular because it is very convenient for you to understand. Yes, this is the circular. In this circular, it says quantification of certain amounts for benefits in calculating employment income. That means we are going to quantify. Earlier we called it non-cash benefits, but now we are using the term quantification of certain amounts, because not only the non-cash benefits, cash benefits also we can quantify. That is why we have used this term. So the heading of this circular is quantification of certain amounts for benefits in calculating employment income. So when we are receiving some income, we should quantify that income for the ascertainment of employment income. So this circular is effective from April 1st, 2023. So in calculating employees' gains and profits from an employment for the period commencing from this date, we should use this circular. So it says value of company shares awarded by employer. That means sometimes company shares are awarded by employer to employees. So at that time, we should consider the value for the employment income. So at that time, we don't know which value we have to consider because that is an award. So because of that, this document says how to determine the value for the employment income. It says value of any benefit accruing to any employee of an employer from the allotment of any share or awarding an option to acquire any share to such employee means. So we have given the definition. The excess, if any, of the market value of such share at the time allotted under an employee share scheme reduced by the employee's contribution for the shares as the case may be. That means market value minus employee's contribution. For an example, suppose the market value of that share is 100 rupees. Then the employee's contribution is 75. Then the benefit for that value for that share is the difference between market value and the employee's contribution, that is 100 minus 75. So the value for the uh, consideration for the employment benefit is 25, because 100 worth of shares are given to that employee for 75 rupees. Then that means 25 gain is there. So that gain is considered as a benefit of that employee. Then value of benefits from any residence. So first one is for the shares. The second one is for the residence. Residence means sometimes our employer give us residence. අපිට ගයක් දෙන්නේ සමහර වෙලාවට නොමිලේ ගයක් දෙනවා ගාණක් එකතු කරලා ගයක් දෙනවා. So that kind of residence also that is not a cash benefit, but it can be just a residence. So at that time you have to consider the amount based on this circular. So this is how we have to identify, we have to determine the value for the residence. අපිට නිකන් ගයක් දීලා තියෙනවා නම් අපේ ආයතනේ ඒ ආයතනේ අපිට ගේ දෙන්නේ නිකන් නෙවෙයිනේ. අපිට දෙන බෙනිෆිට් එකක්. අපිට අපි තමයි හරිනම් ගයක් හොයාගෙන පදිංචි වෙන්න ඕනේ. ගෙවල් කුලි ගෙවන්න ඕනේ. But our employer give us that residency facility, resident facility. So that is an employment benefit. So we should calculate a benefit for that residence. So this is how we should calculate the benefit of residence. The residence, it can be furnished or unfurnished, is provided by the employer. So this is the description. Then we have to consider whether that house is in the rated area or unrated area, or whether it is a estate bungalow. If it is in that rated area, so this calculation is for the month. Specified amounts for the relevant month. So for the, after considering the month value, we have to multiply it by 12 to consider the value or benefit for the year. So if we have given a house in a rated area, then how do we determine the value of that residence? We, in the circular says to consider the 12.5% of the salary of the respective employee for the relevant month as a benefit. That means salary එකෙන් 12%ක් ඒ මාසයේ benefit එක විදියට identify කරගන්න ඕන. So if that building is in the rated area. If that building is in unrated area, then 10% of the salary should be considered per month. So when we are calculating an employee's employment income for a year of assessment, we should multiply this value by 12 because we have given monthly benefit. If that person is given an estate bungalow, then the salary should be multiplied by 7.5%. So this is for the month. Then now we have an issue. What is the meaning of salary for the purpose of this benefit? For the calculation of this housing benefit, what is the meaning of salary? So it says salary means the amount required to be considered for required to be considered for the deduction of WNOP or Provident Fund. For all other cases, that means for some employees, they are a member of this WNOP or Provident Fund. At that time, what is the salary considered for WNOP or the Provident deduction of Provident Fund? That amount should be considered as a salary. Mainly that this is basic salary. For other cases, salary means gains and profits from employment received in cash to such employee from relevant employment. සමහර අය ඉන්නවා මේ දෙකම නැති. WNOP කපෙන්නේ නැති, Provident Fund වලටත් යන්නේ නැති කට්ටියක් හිටියොත් උන්ට ලැබෙන ගාණ තමයි salary වෙන්නේ. So when we are calculating the resident benefit, housing benefit of an employee, we have to multiply the salary by 12.5% if it is in rated area. If it is not in rated area, 10% should be applied. Then it says where the value specified in 2A. above exceeds the cost incurred by the employer or market value of the place of residence, then the value whichever is lower shall be the value of benefit. That means sometimes employer rented it out from another person for some amount and he has given it to his employee. At that time, what is the benefit we have to consider? It says, where the value specified in 2A. 2A means this table. 2A above exceeds the cost incurred by the employer or market value of the place of residence. Sometimes market value of the residence is more than this amount. Or sometimes employer pay to the landlord more than this amount. But we are instructed to apply only the value whichever is lower. That is the amount we have to consider as a benefit. That is why we are calling this a quantification. If not, if we are not using that word, we have to consider the market value. ඒක තේරුණාද ඔයගලන්ට? ඒ කියන්නේ මේ වගේ එකක් ගන්නකොට අපිට සාමාන්‍යයෙන් කියන්නේ මාකට් වැලියු එක ගන්න. මාකට් වැලියු එක ඇසටර්න් කරන්න බැරි නම් විතරයි මේ වැලියු වලට යන්නේ කියන්නේ. but මේ employer ගෙයක් රෙන්ට් කරලා රෙන්ට් කරපු ගෙදර නම් මේ employeeට දීලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ ගෙදර වටිනාකම අපි දැනටමත් දන්නවා. Market value, we know the market value. And we know the amount we are paying to our landlord. So at that time, we should not consider that value if that value exceeds the amount mentioned in this table. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි salary එක 12.5න් වැඩි කරලා එන value එක වැඩි නම් අර ගානට වඩා අපිට කියන්නේ දෙකෙන් අඩු වගේ ගන්න. We should not consider this amount if the market value is less than this amount because lower value should be considered for this purpose here. The value whichever is lower shall be the value of benefit of such employee for such purpose. Then C, where the employer reimburses any expense incurred by the employee or pays any amount to the employee as a monthly allowance connected with the house or an apartment occupied by the employee, the value of benefit shall be the actual expense reimbursed or the allowance paid by the employer. So this is the second scenario. Sometimes employer asks employee to find out a good house for him and they are instructed to claim that rent from the employer. That means employee pay rental to landlord, but employer reimburses that amount. Or sometimes he give us an allowance, monthly allowance, not the house. Here, that person has given a house. Under Part C, it is not a house, it is an allowance or a reimbursement. At that time, we cannot apply this table. At that time, we have to consider the actual expenses reimbursed or the allowances paid by the employer. එතකොට employment benefit එක ගන්නකොට ගෙයක් දුන්නොත් විතරයි මේ විදිහට යන්න පුළුවන්. ගෙයක් දෙන්නේ නැතුව එයාට ගෙවල් කුලිය employee දරන ගෙවල් කුලිය employer reimburse කරොත් හරි employeeට monthly allowance එකක් දුන්නොත් ගෙදරකට actual expense could be considered as a benefit. If any amount is deducted from the employee's salary for providing a place of residence or by way of rent, the employment benefit should be the benefit specified, the difference between the actual amount and the deducted amount. එතකොට employee ගෙන් කොටසක් පඩියෙන් අඩු කරනවා නම් මේ benefits වලට benefit A, benefit B, benefit C minus the amount deducted from employee's salary is the benefit. ඒතර මේවා හොඳට බලාගන්න employment income එක හදනකොට විභාගෙට මේ වලින් අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම එනවා. employment income එක calculate කරනකොට මේ වගේ ගණන් එනවා. මේ වලින් අපි මතක තියාගෙන හදන්න ඕනේ employment income ගන්න විදිය. Then we are moving to the vehicle benefit. Quantification of value of benefit, including in traveling, transport, or related facilities provided by the employer. So now we are moving to the vehicle benefit. That means in most cases, sometimes we are receiving vehicle benefit, not the housing benefit. නේද? ගොඩක් වෙලාවට අපිට ගෙදරකට වඩා ඉන්න බහුතරයක් employees ලාට හම්බෙන දෙයක් තමයි vehicle benefit. So now we are going to ascertain the vehicle benefit under employment income. The value of the benefit from the provision of motor vehicle, partly used for private use or aggregate of any allowance for that means this how vehicle is given to an employee for the use of private, partly used for private. Paid in lieu of the provision of such vehicle is quantified as follows. So now we are going to ascertain the vehicle benefit. So that vehicle is given for the usage of partly for private use. If this is exclusively for the official use, we cannot calculate this the vehicle benefit. අපිට ඔෆිෂියල් යූස් එකට නම් තනිකරම දීලා තියෙන්නේ. ඔෆිස් එකේ පාවිච්චියට දුන්න එකට අපිට පුළුවන්ද ගන්න ඇසිටේන් කරන්න බෑ. මොකද private use එක දරා ගන්න ඕනේ අපි. We should bear that cost. But if that employer gives it, that means it is a benefit. That is why we are ascertaining vehicle benefit under employment income. The value of benefit from private use, partly private, partly official, of any motor vehicle provided by the employer. Then we have to go to the type of the vehicle. So any vehicle. If only vehicle is given, then 20,000. If with vehicle and driver, then we have to consider 30,000. If with vehicle, driver and fuel, 50,000 should be considered per month. මෙන්න මේක හොඳට මතක තියාගන්න ගණන් හදනකොට සමහරුන්ට අමතකයි. මේ ටික එකතු කරලා year of assessment එකේ tax එක හදනවා. So these values are for month. So we can consider these values for the calculation of vehicle benefit. If that vehicle is partly used for private usage. Then B, the value of the benefit shall be 25% of the cost incurred by the employer if that employer is a government official. That means for any government officials, there is a circular. Under any circular, directive or regulation issued in that behalf by the government. That means for some government servants, the vehicle benefit is an entitlement. So they are entitled for the vehicle benefit. It has mentioned under a circular, directive or a regulation. If under this circular, directive or regulation, if a specific category is mentioned as they are entitled for the vehicle benefit, at that time, from that benefit, only 25% is considered for the employment income. හිතන්නකො මේ government officer කෙනෙක් ඉන්නවා. එයාගේ නම තියෙනවා මේ circular එකේ නම නෙවෙයි the designation is given in that circular for this position vehicle allowance is entitled. At that time what we have to do, we have to consider only 25% of that total amount. Where any employee is required to be provided with a vehicle for official use, fully or partly, and entitled to a payment for fuel under any circular. Here we are discussed about the vehicle. Under Part C, it is fuel. So same as above vehicle, only 25% is considered for private use. We are considering the benefit received for private. ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට private පාවිච්චි කරන එකක් කවුරු හරි දුන්නොත් නේ අපිට benefit එකක් වෙන්නේ. ඔෆිස් එකේ ගමන් බිමන් වලට යන්න අපිට කීයක් හරි දුන්නොත් ඒක අපේ benefit එකක් නෙවෙයි. ඒක official එකකට ඒක office එකෙන් reimburse කරන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් අපේ ගෙදර අපි හොයා ගන්න ඕනේ. අපේ වාහනේ අපි සකස් කර ගන්න ඕනේ. අපි හදා ගන්න ඕනේ. අපි ෆෝල් ගහ ගන්න ඕනේ. අපේ රාජකාරියට යන්න. But sometimes they are giving us vehicle benefit, fuel benefit. So at that time, we have to calculate, we have to consider only 25% of that total amount as a benefit if that person is a government official prescribed under this circular directive or regulation. Circular directive or regulation. I think you can read this B and C. Both are, B is for vehicle, C is for fuel. Then the vehicle of benefit shall be quantified as provided under paragraph 3A above in respect of only one vehicle from the primary employment and or secondary employment. So this benefit, when 3A means this one, this table, the figures provided under this table is applicable only to a one vehicle. That means if we have given more than one vehicle, at that time, this concession is applicable only to a one vehicle. For all other vehicles, market value should be considered for the as a benefit. Then fuel also, if fuel also provided for more than one vehicle, Part 3C is applied only for one vehicle. That means 3C means this 25%. 25% is applicable only for one vehicle. If that person has provided more than one vehicle and fuel is provided for more than one vehicles, at that time, for all other vehicles, total amount should be considered. The aggregate of the cost incurred by the employer employs for vehicle and fuel of all additional vehicles shall be the value of benefit to be included. If the cost of such additional vehicle is not ascertainable, market value should be considered. That means we have given some concessions only for one vehicle. If we have given more than one vehicle, concessions are not applicable. Market value should be considered. Then this is for motorcycle. If that is a motorcycle and that motorcycle uses fully or partly for the private use, at that time, we have to consider 5,000 per month, irrespective of the engine capacity, 5,000 per month as a non-cash benefit. And for fuel, that is 3,000 per month. So this is per month. If that person has given motorcycle and fuel both, 5,000 plus 3,000 should be considered. The value of the benefit from private use of any motor vehicle used for field work. That means if that person is working in the estate, at that time, or engineer, they are using vehicles for field work. Provided by the employer, where accurate record of such usage is maintained by such employer, amount of such non-cash benefit shall be 25 per kilometer, but shall not exceed 20,000 per month. That means for this to apply this 25 per kilometer value, they should maintain proper records. Otherwise, we cannot identify the proper amount. Because of that, proper record should be maintained if they are using some vehicles for field work. Then for motor vehicle also the same, that is 5 rupees per kilometer should be considered as a benefit. Then where the employer incurs or reimburses any expense in respect of fuel or maintenance or any motor vehicle owned by the employee, the value of the benefit to be actual expenditure. That means where the employer incurs or reimburses any expenses in respect of fuel or maintenance of any motor vehicle or motor bicycle. At that time, actual expenditure should be considered. So now you can understand these concessions are provided for the vehicles. Then employer incurs or reimburses any expenses as a fuel or motor vehicle maintenance of in respect of fuel or maintenance of any motor vehicle or motorcycle. At that time actual expenditure is a benefit. අපේ වාහනයක් මේන්ටෙනන්ස් කරන්නේ අපේ employer නම් ඒ වෙලාවට ඒ මේන්ටෙනන්ස් වලට දරන මුළු වීදමම it is a benefit of that employee. If any amount is deducted from the employee's salary, ඒ කියන්නේ අපිට දැනටමත් දෙන අපිට මේ allowances දීලා salary එකකින් කොටසක් කපා ගන්නවා නම් අපේ salary එකකින් කපා ගන්න කොටස අඩු කරන්න ඕනේ, because it is not a part of the employment benefit. It should be removed. Okay, so this is for the housing benefit. Then this is for the vehicle benefit. Then we can move to the quantification of the value of communication facilities provided by the employer. So if that facility is provided to the government official, only 25% of the cost incurred by the employer should be the value of the benefit. That means for the communication facilities provided by the employer, if that person is a government official, 25% of the cost incurred by the employer should be a benefit. Then loans on concessionary interest rates. So that is 0. That means we do not consider concessionary interest rate loans as a benefit. Earlier we considered it as a benefit because in most cases banks are providing this kind of facilities to their employees. Lower interest rate loans are provided by providing banks. So at that time we considered the difference as a benefit. So now we are not considering it as a benefit. That is why it shall be 0. So payment of telephone bills of the employee, where the employer pays telephone or communication bills. That means bills are paid by the employer. At that time, only 50% should be considered as a benefit, not the total 100% one. Then that means only 50% of the bill payment amount is considered as a benefit. Other non-cash benefits provided by employer, cost of the benefit incurred by the employer shall be treated as value of benefit received or derived. That means all others are considered under market value. If we are receiving some benefit from our employer, and if that kind of income are not provided under these categories, the market value of that benefit should be considered as a benefit. So these are the benefits we have to consider when we are calculating employment income. There are some questions. Madam, is withholding tax applicable only for professional services or all employees? I mean the 5%. 5% is not applicable for the employment income. it is a professional service income. Professional service means I think you can understand to categorize, to identify whether an income is an employment or a business. So some income should be categorized under employment. Some income should be categorized under business income. If that income is earned from the as an independent service provider or as a providing professional services. So providing professional services means it is a kind of business income, not the employment income. So first of all, we have to identify whether some income is business income or employment income. So employment income is the dominant one. So because of that, first of all, we have to identify whether whether an income should be categorized under employment or not. If it is an employment income, EPIT should be deducted, not the 5%. But if it is not an employment income and if it is a professional income, and that if that income is given specified in the act itself says who are the eligible person for the deduction of this 5% under section 85. So that services, when we are making to a person for that kind of services, then only we can deduct 5%. පැහැදිලිද දන්නේ? Professional service එකයි employment service එකයි කියන්නේ sources දෙකක්. Employment එකෙන් අඩු කරන එකම withholding tax එක APIT. Professional service එකට තමයි 5% apply වෙන්නේ. එතකොට කිසිම වෙලාවක employment income එකකට ගෙවන අවස්ථාවක employee connect කරන payment එකට 5% deduct කරන්න බෑ. deduct කරන්න ඕනේ APIT. Professional income එකක් නම් ලබන්නේ ඒ income එකත් අර doctorsලා software engineersලා කියලා list එකක් තියෙනවා act එකේම. We can discuss it later. At that time, when we are making payment to that kind of persons for the services provided under that section 85, then only we can deduct 5%. So the most beneficial method is to employer to rent a house and provide to the employee. Can be because the lowest value should be considered as a benefit. Rent එකට ගන්නකොට ගෙවන ගානට වඩා අර benefit එක table එකේ තියෙන ගාන අඩුයි නම් table එකේ ගාන should be considered as a benefit. But if that amount is higher than the rental income, එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද සමහරවිට rural area එකක rent income එක හරි අඩුයි. Actual amount is lesser than the amount provided in that table. So at that time, we have to consider that lower amount. එතකොට එහෙම වෙන්න ඒක හැම විශ්සෙම වෙන්නත් පුළුවන් නොවෙන්නත් පුළුවන්. Madam, one vehicle rule is applicable for GVT official as well, government officials. One vehicle, yes, for the government officials also the rule is same. Madam, if the actual fuel usage of a motorbike is just 50 liter and which is below 300 LKR, in case, should we consider the actual fuel cost? Actual fuel cost. Yes, we can consider actual fuel cost. Madam, if we receive any profit share from the employer, how it be taxable? Profit share. So value of share, I have mentioned it in the first one. Here, value of company shares awarded by employer. So using this paragraph, you can ascertain the value. So the value means the market value minus the employee's contribution. After deducting employee's contribution, if available, the difference can be considered as a benefit. Okay. So this is the non-cash benefit table. Actually, it is not non-cash because we cannot tell it non-cash because cash benefits also available in this document. So it is not the non-cash, but quantification of the amounts. Quantification of the amounts. Madam, can you tell me if withholding tax was applicable on rent in year of assessment 1920? If yes, was it applicable for the full year and at what rate? Yes, in 1920, withholding tax on rent was applicable. Was it applicable for the full year and at what rate? Actually, for 1920 also we had that rent withholding tax, that is 10%. 10% on rent income was deductible. Should was the withholding tax amount. Was it applicable for the full year? Yes. And at what rate? 10%. If any employee is working under contract basis means we have to consider that person is an employee or not. I think I have given some characteristics to identify whether that person is an employee or not. So if that person is an employee, at that time EPIT should be deducted. Contract basis means uh, contract, that means contract is there, not employee contract. Sometimes it can be a different contract. It depends. So contract basis, we have to consider whether there is a employer-employee relationship. If there is an employer-employee relationship in between the two persons, at that time we have to deduct EPIT. If a person has to pay a monthly payment, but instead of paying it monthly, they accumulate the payments over the months and pay it one lump sum, then it will incur taxes. Is that possible? Has to pay a monthly payment means, I cannot understand. Monthly payment means as an employee, he receives that amount or service fee. If it is a service fee, or is it a service fee or a salary? Is that possible? Actually, it can be because it is based on the agreement with that employer and employee whether to make the payment monthly or not. If it is, so I don't know your question. It is not clear whether that is with regard to the employer-employee payment, that means salary payment, or any service fee. So if it is a salary payment, it depends. It can be because it is an agreement with the employer and employee. Based on the agreement, it can be happen. But taxes should be deducted at the time of making that payment. So if they are making that lump sum payment at that time, the total tax should be deducted based on using the table 2. Okay. So this is the circular we should follow. Please read this. මේක හොඳට කියවන්න. මේක හොඳට ඔලුවට දාගන්න. මොකද in your examination I will give you this kind of questions. මොකද employment income එක ගණනය කරනකොට මේ වගේ දේවල් අනිවාර්යෙන්ම එනවා. Okay. Now we can move to the table. Now we can move to the table. So as I explained earlier, tax tables are using for the calculation of APIT deduction. So APIT deduction means APIT is deducted by the employer. Yes, this is table 1. This is the table 1. So I have explained about 8 tables. So this is the table 1. Table 1 should be applied by the accountant when that accountant deduct taxes from the regular profits. So what are the regular profits? First of all, this table is applicable for all resident employees. To all resident employees and non-resident but citizens. To all resident employees, all non-resident employees who are citizens. So resident and citizen employees are applicable this table. So this is table 1. දැන් මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ දෙයක් තමයි අපි අපේ ටැක්ස් එක තනියෙන් හදනකොට මේ ටේබල් හදන්නවත් මේ ටේබල් බලන්නවත් අවශ්‍යතාවක් ඉන්නේ නැහැ. අපිට පුළුවන් අපේ ටැක්ස් එක තනියම හදන්න. හැබැයි accountant ගොඩාරියක් ඉන්නවා employeesලා. ඒ වෙලාවට accountant පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ එක එක්කෙනාගේ ටැක්ස් එක වෙන වෙනම අරගෙන හදන්න. ඒ නිසා තමයි මෙන්න මේ වගේ ටේබල් එකක් හදලා ඩිපාර්ට්මන්ට් එකෙන් දාලා තියෙන්නේ. මේක හරියට අපේ ලඝු පොත් වගේ. මම පෙන්නන්නම් ඒක තියෙන හැටි. So table 1 is applicable to all resident employees and all non-resident employees who are citizens of Sri Lanka. So this table is applicable to regular profits. Regular profits means the income we are receiving regularly. Regularly, we are receiving some income from our employer. For the deduction of APIT on that income, we should use table 1.
අගොල්ලෝ ඉස්සරහට ගන්න.
The first one is wages, salary, commission, OT, traveling allowance, other allowance, fees, pension, other profits from employment that arise in any pay period. So I think you can understand the difference between these things. So all are receiving regularly. Then payment on housing. Every month we are receiving. දේශාන් නේද මේ අන්මියුට් වෙලා ඉන්නේ? Okay. Then for the regular profits, we can use table 1. Regular profits means the amount we are receiving regularly. Housing benefit, conveyance, electricity allowance, telephone bill allowance, entertainment allowance, likewise. So all these are income we are receiving regularly. Then medical bills reimbursement, insurance policy reimbursement, like that. Then other benefits. So for the calculation of APIT on this kind of regular income, we are using table 1. We mean an employer can use tax table 1. So when we are preparing this table 1, we have already given 150,000 personal relief. So that means when our employer deducting APIT from our salary, he already deducted this 150,000 per month because it has already included in our tax table. Because of that, we cannot deduct it again when we are calculating the relief, when we are calculating the tax liability. The next one is so we have another two tax tables, that is table 5 and table 2. So sometimes in the first few months, we have less than 150,000 rupees salary or benefit. So at that time, we cannot use table 1. Sometimes we are receiving our salary not in each and every month, but after aggregating total amount, we are receiving salary arrears, some bonuses like that. At that time, we cannot use table 1. Then we have to go to table 2. So other than the exempt amounts given under third schedule of the no exemptions are available for employment income. So exemptions should be considered for the in the calculation of this employment. Exemption should be considered. So this is the table. So prior to this is the summarized tax table. So we can use this summarized tax table for the calculation of regular profits. එතකොට මෙතන බලන්න මෙන්න මේ ටේබල් එක තමයි පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ accountant. If our monthly salary, here this is taxable income. Taxable income. So for the employment income, expenses are not deductible, not allowed to be deducted. So only thing we have to consider is the personal relief. For the year of assessment 25-26, personal relief per year of assessment is 1.8 million. For a month, it is 150,000. So up to 150,000, there is a relief. So we are not applying tax rate for the first 150,000. Then a salary in between 150,000 to 233,333. This is the method we have to calculate tax liability. 6% of monthly regular profits from employment less 9,000. Why do we deduct 9,000? What is the reason for deducting 9,000? 6%න් වැඩි කරලා ඉන්න තු ඇයි 9,000ක් අඩු කරන්නේ? What is the reason? Who can tell me? Who can tell me the reason for deducting 9,000? කාට හරි තේරෙනවද කියලා? Yes, because that is the tax for 150,000. For 150,000, because here we are considering the amount in between this value, but for 150,000, it is a tax relief. So because of that, for that 150,000 tax, we should remove from this tax table. So that is why we have deducted that 9,000. Likewise, we can apply this table for the calculation of our tax liability. එතකොට අපිට අපේ තනියම tax එක හදනකොට මේක පාවිච්චි කරන්නත් පුළුවන් නොකරන්නත් පුළුවන්. හැබැයි අපිට තනියම හදනකොට මෙහෙම පාවිච්චි කරගෙන යෑමේ අවශ්‍යතාවක් නැහැ, because we are calculating only one person's tax liability. අපේ එක තනියම අපි හදනකොට මේ table හදා යන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. But accountant හදනකොට මේක ගොඩක් අමාරු නිසා ඒගොල්ලෝ app එකකට දාලා මේ table අතට මේ values අතට මෙච්චර ඉන්නවා කියලා මේක හදාගෙන යනවා. So this is a summarized tax table. This is for table 1. The table 1 should apply for regular profits. එතකොට when we are receiving our salary and every amounts we receiving in each month, for the deduction of tax, the accountant use this table. දැන් බලන්න පුළුවන් තමන්ගේ පඩියෙන් ටැක්ස් එක අඩු වෙලා තියෙන ගාණ හරිද කියලා. දැන් මේකට ඇප්ලයි කරලා බලන්න තමන් ඉන්නේ මොන රේන්ජ් එකේද කියලා. Then you can apply the relevant tax rate and you can deduct the amount, the less amount. Then you can check whether the deduction of your tax liability is correct or not. This is the traditional tax table 1. Traditional tax table 1 is this. මේක නිසා තමයි මම මේකට අපේ අර පොඩි කාලේ ඉගෙන ගත්ත ලඝු පොත වගේ. Here up to 1000, 150,000 0. From 1000 150,000 1 to 150,000 17 1 rupee. So this is the tax. ඒතර මෙන්න මේ ටේබල් එක පාවිච්චි කරලා තමයි accountantලා tax එක අඩු කරේ. ඒතර මේ පොත් මෙන්න මේ ටේබල් එකේ අපි ඉන්න රේන්ජ් එකට යනවා අපේ monthly salary එකේ රේන්ජ් එක ඔන්න මේක මෙතනින් මේක අඩු කරනවා. So ඒකයි මම කිව්වේ මේක ලඝු පොත වගේ කියලා. But it has given only up to this amount. Up to 366,100. මෙන්න මේ ගානට වෙනකන් විතරයි මේක දීලා තියෙන ටේබල් එක. That is why we have that summarized table. That is why we have summarized table. Now, without using this document, we can use that summarized table for the calculation of our tax liability. Okay, this is table 1. Now we can move to table 2. So what is the purpose of this table 2? This is table 2. Table 2 is for lump sum payment. What is the meaning of lump sum payment? So table 1 is for regular profit. Table 2 is for lump sum payment. This table is also applicable to all resident employees and all non-resident but citizen. So since we have normally for non-resident, non-citizens, personal relief is not applicable. But for citizens, it is applicable. That is why in table 1, it has deducted 1.8 million as a personal relief. So this table 2 also applicable to all resident employees and non-resident citizen of Sri Lanka. So this table is applicable for special situations. That is, deducting tax on lump sum payments to above mentioned employees. So what are the lump sum payments? What are the lump sum payments? Payments such as bonus, leave encashment, medical expenses reimbursement. That means that is not receiving each and every month. Salary arrears. So for this kind of income, we are using table 2. දැන් බෝනස් එකක් එකපාරට හම්බුනාම table 1 apply කරන්නේ. මොකද table 1 apply කරොත් එයාට අසාධාරණයක් වෙනවා. හැම මාසෙම ඒක අඩු කරන විදිහට තමයි හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ. එතකොට යාට ඒක අසාධාරණයක් වෙනවා. So because of that we have to apply table 2 for the deduction of APIT on lump sum payment. සාමාන්‍ය මොනවද අපිට නිතර හම්බෙන lump sum payment? Mainly bonus. අද මෙතන ඉන්න බහුතරයක් දෙනාට බෝනස් හම්බ වෙනවා ඇති. ඒතර මේ බෝනස් එක හම්බ වෙනකොට for that bonus we should apply table 2 for the deduction of APIT. So how do we do it? So first of all, we have to calculate these figures. These are the, first of all, we have to calculate these figures. D should be calculated. We call it EGA. Gross aggregate monthly remunerations already paid during the year of assessment. That means normal salary, monthly remuneration. Normally when we are receiving monthly remuneration, monthly benefit. So already paid during the year. Amount should be considered. We call it A. Then gross aggregate monthly remuneration payable during the year. Payable during the year. Paid and payable. So means altogether gross aggregate monthly remuneration for the year of assessment. එහෙම කිව්වත් හරිනේ. දැනටමත් හම්බුනේවා ලැබිය යුතු ඒවා. දෙකම ගත්තාම year of assessment එකේ එකතුව. Then gross aggregate lump sum payments already made. That means if we have already received a lump sum payment during the year, that amount should be considered. So altogether, aggregate of this above 3 is D. So now we know what is D. A plus B plus C plus equals D. Monthly remuneration received or already received, monthly remuneration receivable, lump sum payments already received. So we have to calculate this D. Then we have a table. After calculating this D, we can use this table. It says if D is equal or less than 108 million, it is nil. Why? This is the personal relief. So personal relief is applicable to resident employees and Sri Lankan citizens. So because of that, it is mentioned as nil because that is the personal relief. Then the remuneration in between 1.8 million to 2.8 million, this is the formula we have to apply. So what is it? D multiply by 6. If it is in the first category, then 1.8 to 2.8 means for the first 1 million, 6%. For the next 500, 18%. For the next 500, 24%. Next 500, 30%. Balance 36%. So these are the actual table tax rates applicable for an individual. So using that values, we can calculate, we can deduct APIT. So 1.8 million to 2.8 million, 6%. So if we are within this range, we can multiply it by 6%. Then we can deduct 108. So what is the meaning of 108? What is it? 108. Why do we deduct 108? මොකක්ද 108 කියන්නේ? දැන් අපිට මොකද්ද මේ සූත්‍රය හදලා දීලා තියෙන එක? අපිට මතක තියාගන්න අමාරුයි නම් මේක හිතලම හදා ගන්න පුළුවන්. කොහොමද මේක හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ? D multiply by 6. ඇයි 6 යන්නේ? පළවෙනි ස්ලැබ් එකේ වැඩි වෙන්නේ 6 වලින්. ඒ නිසා තමයි 6 වලින් වැඩි කරන්නේ. 6 minus 108. කොහොමද 108 හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ? ඔව්. 1.8 million multiplied by 6%. That is 108. So we are not deducting 100, only 108. In addition to that, we have to deduct other taxes as well. So what are they? Aggregate of monthly tax deducted on A. Aggregate of monthly tax deducted on A plus aggregate of monthly tax deducted on B. What is A and what is B? As per table 1. So what is A and what is B? Monthly remuneration already paid, monthly remuneration payable. So we know the values. So for that values, what is the taxes to be paid? That amount should be deducted. In addition to that, tax deducted previously on lump sum payment. මොකද්ද මේ කරන්නේ? මේ ඔක්කොම ටික එකට අරගෙන මේක ටැක්ස් එකයි මේකේ ටැක්ස් එකයි අයින් කරාම මේකේ ටැක්ස් එක ඉතුරු වෙනවා. ඒකනේ මේ කරන්නේ. මේ ඔක්කොම එකට අරගෙන මෙන්න මේ D කියන කෙනා කොච්චරක් ටැක්ස් ගෙවන්න ඕනේද බලනවා. ඒ ටැක්ස් එකෙන් මේ monthly ගාන අඩු කරාම එනවා බෝනස් එකට අදාළව ගෙවන්න ඕනේ ගාන. ඒක තමයි මේ ටේබල් එකකින් හදලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒක මේ නිකන් 아무තු දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. මේ ටේබල් එකකින් මේක හදලා පැහැදිලිව කියලා තියෙනවා මෙන්න මෙහෙම තමයි ඩිඩක්ට් කරන්නේ. So this table can be applied for lump sum payment. එතකොට දැන් පැහැදිලි ඇති. Okay. Now we can move to this example. It says Mr. Ranavira is a resident employee of a government institution, will receive an incentive of 600,000 in April. His monthly regular profits and gains from employment, including non-cash benefit, 170,000. So now he has received incentive in April. So we are going to calculate EBIT on that incentive. How do we do it? First one is monthly remuneration already received. So already received means now we are considering the month of April. So month of April means for that up to that month of April we have only 1 month period. So already paid only 1 month, payable for balance 11 months period. Then for the gross lump sum that will receive in April, it is 600,000. So this is the total amount that can be received for that year of assessment, 2.6 million. Then we can go to the table. What is the amount? 2.64. Then what is the applicable slab? 2.64. It is under the second line. So this formula should be applied. D multiply by 6%. This is the formula. So after applying the figures here, we can calculate it like this. Then the tax for the incentive is 36,000. So when we are receiving incentive in the month of April, 36,000 will be deducted by the employer here. Okay. Then there is example 2. In this example, 2 bonuses will be received. So one bonus is in April, the next bonus is in December. So how do we calculate it? Again, the same formula. Monthly remuneration received, monthly remuneration receivable, gross aggregate lump sum payment already received, and receivable. The total income receivable for that year of assessment is 3.4 million. මේක තේරෙනව ඇති. ලැබුණ කොටස ලැබිය යුතු කොටස ලැබුණු කොටස ලැබුණු යුතු කොටස විදිහට අරන් මුළු අවුරුද්ද පුරාම ලැබෙන්න තියෙන ගාණ තමයි මේ බලන්නේ. So after that we identify the relevant slab. So after that we can apply the formula. So then we can calculate the relevant tax for that bonus. එතකොට අර මේ කියන සූත්‍රයට ආදේශ කරලා මේක හදාගෙන යනවා. එතකොට මේ විදිහට තමයි අපිට පේමන්ට් එක කරන accountant අපෙන් tax අඩු කරන්නේ. ඒතර අද වෙනකොට ඔයගලන්ට හම්බුනේවා මේ සූත්‍රයට දාලා හදලා බලන්න පුළුවන් accountant මේ වැඩේ හරියට කරලාද කියලා. There's another example. මේ examples ටික ඔයගලන්ට පුළුවන් හදන්න. හදලා මේ කියන දේ තේරුම් ගන්න පුළුවන්. For the bonus, for the salary arrears, you can use this table too. Then we can move to table 3. Okay, this is table 3. Table 3 is for once and for all payment. Once and for all payment. What is the meaning of that? Terminal benefits. Once and for all payments means terminal benefits. අපේ රස්සාව නැති වෙනකොට අපිට හම්බ වෙන ಜಾති. එහෙම එකක් හම්බුනොත් කෙනෙකුට ඒ වගේ income tax කරන්න ඕනේ under table 3. එතකොට අර සාමාන්‍ය table වලට යන්න බෑ. Table 3 should be applied. So in that table it says the amount of the once and for all payments to which this table is applied are. So these are the things that we have, these are the income we have to consider for the application of table 3. Any sum payable in commutation of pension. Pension එකෙන් අර එකතු කරලා හම්බ වෙන ගාණ. Any sum payable as retiring gratuity. Any sum payable as compensation for loss of office or employment. Any sum payable from the employees trust fund, excluding the share of investment income. What is the share of investment income කියන්නේ? ETF එක deposit කරාට පස්සේ අපිට හම්බ වෙන interest portion එකක්. අන්න ඒක තමයි exclude කරන්න කියන්නේ. ඒක exempt. ඒ නිසා ඒක අයින් කරනවා. Any sum payable from the employees trust fund. Any sum payable from any provident fund which has not been approved by the Commissioner General. Why we have used this term? Which has not been approved. If it is approved, what is the treatment? If that kind of If that income is from any provident fund approved by the Commissioner General, what is the tax treatment? අපි ගණන් හදනකොට මේ tax exempt මොනවාද? tax liable මොනවාද? මේව මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ ගාණක් හදනකොට. employment income එකට. Exemptions. Any sum payable from any provident fund which has not been approved. මොනවද මෙතන තියෙන්නේ? Which is so these are the items, these are the income that this table 3 applies. So table 3 apply වෙන ඒවා liable ඒවා තමයි මෙතන තියෙන්නේ. tax වලට යටත් වෙන ඒවා. එතකොට which has not been approved by the Commissioner General. If it is approved by the Commissioner General, it is given under exemptions. Here, any amount paid from a provident fund approved by the CGIR or regulated provident fund, it is tax exempt. එතකොට approve කරපු provident fund එකකින් income එකක් හම්බ වුණොත් ඒක tax exempt. ETF එකේ interest part එක tax exempt. ඒක නිසා මේ දෙකම මෙතනට එන්නේ නැහැ. Then capital sum paid for the injury, personal injury or death of another person, that is also exempt. Pension, government pension also exempt. So that kind of income are not included here. All other income should be considered for the tax purposes. But some income provided under this up to A to F are taxable. Some are in concessionary rate, under concessionary rate, some are under normal tax rate. So when we are deducting taxes under Schedule 3, actually this is not for the deduction, but just for the instruction. So it says, if the total amount of the following payments to be made by the employee's trust fund or the employee year exceeds 500 million, exceeds 500